Hey guys, welcome to DevOps School. In this video tutorial, we are going to learn about Rancher.
But before we begin, let me inform you few things about us. DevOps School is one of the leading platforms which offers DevOps, cloud and containers technology training and certification programs for freshers and established professionals who wish to update and consolidate their skills in the dynamic IT scenario. We ensure that the training solutions are delivered by highly experienced domain experts with practical working experience in various verticals. Check out the dates and enroll with us for our upcoming batches. For more info, link and contact details are mentioned in the description below.
Yeah, so last session what we did, we deployed the rancher, and the rancher which we deploy is here. Okay, now this is the rancher, and we are going to understand that how can we manage the rancher first, and then after that we're going to deploy the clusters. Okay, by the way, there's one cluster already there on which we installed the rancher, that's a Kubernetes cluster. So again, something similar you will see more the more once we start adding the more clusters. So let's get started. So first thing which we have is understanding the authentication and authorization. Now what is authentication? So that means authentication means how can you log into rancher, and authorization means if once you logged in, what you are allowed to do that, right? So we have two things, authentication and authorizations. Just let me make you comfortable here with the systems. I am talking about this. You should go here and scroll down to the users and authentications. And this area I'm going to talk about now. Okay, this area. This we have authentication and authorizations, all this stuff. Okay, so yeah, this is the points. Let's discuss. So authentications means how basically authentication works in Rancher. So Rancher adds centralized user authentications to your Kubernetes cluster. Now, what is a centralized user authentications? So if you look at this here in Rancher, here you have a user table. You see that here. So here you can create as many users you wanted. For example, I'm creating while talking to also. So this is Rajesh here, display name Rajesh Kumar. And here this is for the test, this is for demo. Okay, and this password I am going to generate randomly. And in fact, I would like to store this password. Where is it today? So I would like to store this password somewhere here. Okay, so this is a Rajesh, and this is the password. Sorry, I did not store it. Copy and paste. So this is the password, and now here I will set some global permissions. We'll discuss these global permissions in detail, but yes, I think this you can understand by looking at it itself. The Rajesh user, you want him to be administrator or restricted administrator or standard user or user base. Now you will have some questions like what are the difference. So here we'll see that global permissions area, and then we see that what are the access each user like administrator, restricted administrator, standard user and user base has. But here if you see that little bit of short description has been given. Administrator have a full control over the entire installations and all resources in the cluster. Now question is, what is the all resources? What is the meaning of all resources here? Did you understand that so far? What is the meaning of all resources?
Resources. I think this user can access to create deploy anything in cluster.
No. So whenever you get to know the keyword which is called resources, please understand that these are the API resources we are talking about. API resources of Kubernetes and API resources of Rancher. So resources here in Rancher in terms of apps, clusters, users, roles, groups, and all these are resources in Rancher. When you talk about the resources in Kubernetes, then pod, namespace, nodes, deployment, all these things are resources. Okay, so I'll put it in a simple way because I have a kubectl. and here API hyphen resources. Resources. See here, these are all the resources I'm talking about. Can you see that? So these are the Kubernetes resources plus the resources which is added by Rancher. See here, what are the number of resources here? So if you see that, just count it. See, 185 resources. Let me tell you here, these resources, what I am counting is not only Kubernetes resources. These resources, Kubernetes has only 60 resources. These resources is related to Rancher also. So you have to get comfortable with that and spend some time over there. These are the resources. So here, all these things, which includes, these are the some of the things which you see here is basically from Kubernetes. But if you scroll down and see here, these all the resources is from Rancher. This resources, if you see these all resources is Rancher, apps, cluster repos. We don't have these resources in Kubernetes, but it has in Rancher. Okay, so these are the custom resources developed by Rancher itself. See, these all fleet has come from the Rancher. Are you understanding? Yeah. So please understand that. So yes, all resources. So administration will have all the resources. Okay. Now, what access you will have to the restricted administrator? So restricted admins have a full control over all resources in a downstream cluster. Now, what is a downstream cluster? What is a downstream cluster?
Downstream cluster, for example, we have a cluster in Amazon or Azure, right?
Yes. So using the Rancher, the cluster which you deploy in AWS or Google Cloud or different places, or add or manage. So that's called downstream cluster. So if you want to give complete access to someone to the downstream cluster, but not local one, the place where you are running the Rancher, then you can assign this one. Standard users can create a new cluster. Yes. Standard user can create a new cluster and manage clusters and project they have been granted access to. And user base, user having the login access on. So these are the global permissions you can set to any users, and these are the built-in additional roles to define for more fine grained permission border. So if you want to assign a little bit more delicate permissions, you can do that. Okay, so yes, we can create a user. Let's say I'm creating administrator round and create it. So I have created a user. I have given an admin access, and every access you have to the Rajesh also. You can create more users like a zone here, zone K, and this is a generator pass. Yeah, and let's say I'm creating with a restricted user and create. So yes, you can create admin users you want, and you can decide what global permissions you can give it. In fact, you can edit also. Let's say Rajesh, I'm going to edit here. You can delete also. You can edit also. You can deactivate also. So all these things you can do that very well. Okay. So this is the users. Now coming back to the slides here. So we need to understand how this authentications works in Rancher. So please understand that left side, let's start with it. Rancher adds centralized user authentications to your Kubernetes cluster. That's just now I did it. It also brings the ability to utilize single set of creds to authenticate with any of your Kubernetes cluster. Okay. Rancher authentication proxy power the centralized user authentication. Remember that during the discussion of Rancher, I said Rancher authentication proxy is deployed in your cluster of Kubernetes and downstream clusters also. And because of that, Rancher is able to manage and authenticate everything. Okay, so because of what? Rancher authentication proxy. If someone will ask you, hey, can you tell me how this authentications works in Rancher? So you should tell like that. There is one component which is running that is called Rancher authentication proxy in the local clusters, which where the Rancher is running, and the downstream clusters also. And because of that, this common authentication is working. Are you understanding now?
Yes, before I have looked the architect, I understood.
Yes. So the rancher authentication proxy authenticates user, then forward request they have to a downstream Kubernetes cluster utilizing the service account. Now, what service accounts? If you look at this SA, you have to keep exploring. So kubectl get SA means service account, and hyphen all a namespace. Namespaces. See that these are all the service accounts which you have, out of which some of the service account is being used by Rancher for getting access to Kubernetes cluster of downstream. Okay. Now, Rancher has a local or external authentication. What does that mean? Local means Rancher itself has a built-in authentication. That means user ID and password, the one which I gave it to you yesterday also and today. Here, this is the Rancher user ID and password. This is the built-in authentications. It's local with the Rancher itself. But you know what? Rancher also supports external authentications. Now, which I'm talking about, let me show you the UI first. See, do you see the auth providers? Auth providers? Hello? Hello?
I see that.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So click
see.
on it. Click on it. Now, if you want, these are the options which you have available, which you can enable. So you can log into Rancher. So you can log in the Rancher using Active Directory. You can log in the Rancher using OpenLDAP, Azure AD, Google account also, GitHub, and many more. So yes, you can log in. Okay, so here Active Directory or maybe OpenLDAP, which is the frequently used. You have to gain all this information, like I have LDAP server information, and activate it, enable. That's all. Okay, so yes, these are the external authentication systems also you can use it to authenticate. But right now the user ID and password, which is an inbuilt and local. Rancher default to local authentication unless external is configured. With external authentication, users are grouped. Understand that. With external authentication, users and groups are used. These determine who's allowed to log into Rancher and what the resources a user can access via RBAC. Understand that users and groups are used also for the external authentications and RBAC. So now what the question is, what is RBAC, by the way? What is RBAC?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
So here I'm reading the last topic. With external authentication, users and group are used. This determines which is allowed to log into Rancher and what resources a user can access via RBAC. Now question is, see, users or group can log in, that's okay, but they can access, they're allowed to do something in Rancher based on the RBAC. Now the question is, what is RBAC?
Uh, uh, you mean external? Hello?
Okay, I'll put it in this way. RBAC is one of the authorization mechanism in Kubernetes. Okay, RBAC stand for role-based access control. Okay, so this is the
Yeah.
built-in functional. This is the built-in functionality in Kubernetes. So now you know Rancher uses the same RBAC for authentication or for authorization in Rancher also. Okay, so groups are not available for local authentication. Mind it, this is an important statement.
Yeah, yeah, I got it.
Users are available for authentications in Rancher, but groups are not available for local authentication. But if you have external authentication like LDAP and all, groups are available for that. Okay, so these are the services which we use for the external, which I showed you. Now, here you can set any of this stuff like Google, GitHub, Azure AD, and all stuff like that. Every configuration servers will this authentication service will config will differ. Okay, now after authentications, let's understand authorization. Authorization means what? What you can do after login. So you log in, let's say using the password or LDAP or AD or Google or any other services also. So you logged in, but what you are allowed to do, how do we set it in Kubernetes, in Rancher? How do we set it? So here that is set by some of the roles what we have. Okay, so once the user log in to Rancher, their authorizations or their access right within the system is determined by global permission and cluster and project roles. Okay, what I'm talking about, let me show you first so you'll get comfortable. Here, if you go to the Rancher, here you see users, and here users Rajesh Kumar, and here I'll go just click on edit. Okay, and here you see global permission. I set it up. So yes, what a user can do, you can set the global permission. Now next point, what they're saying, hey, you can also set at the cluster level and project level also. So how can you see that? So if you have to go to the roles, and here you see these all are global permissions. These all are cluster based permissions, roles, and these all are projects and namespace. So basically you can add a user to these roles, and automatically these roles have certain permissions, and automatically it'll become a part of that things. How it works, I'll explain you in some time. Just give me some more time. So here, so yes, in a Rancher, users and group. What is the users and group? Here you have, this is the users, and here you have a groups. Now groups, I repeat, will not work with a local authentication. Remember, local authorization and local authentication will not work. You will have to use the external one. You see that here, local authentication does not support the groups. That means the right now the one which we have enabled is a local authentication based on user ID and password. But external authentication means something which is like LDAP, open and stuff like that. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now here, so in Rancher, we have a user and group. So within a Rancher, each person authenticates as a user, which is a login that grants you access to Rancher. Okay, once the user logs in the Rancher into the Rancher, their authorization or their access rights within the system is determined by the user's role. I repeat, once you log in, what access you may have depends on the roles. What roles? You have a multiple roles. Again, I'm showing you. Do not forget, you have a global roles. Here you have a, sorry, you have a global roles. Look at this. Which are the global roles? You see that here. It can be administrator, it can be config, authentication, and here it can be multiple roles are there. There we had a very minimal roles. If you go to the users, click on these users. There we have primarily, just a second, admin, edit. See here, these roles were here, but more roles are here actually. Okay, so yes, here you have a dedicated URL for the roles. So any users or group for the external services, any users you can add into these roles, global level roles. This is this roles has been designed for the cluster level, and this role has been designed for the namespace and project level. So there is some noise coming from your side.
Yeah. I moved. Nah, sorry.
Just mute yourself, you'll be okay. Yeah. So yes. Now Rancher relies on users and group to determine who's allowed to log into Rancher and what resources they can access. When authenticating with external provider, groups are provided from the external provider based on the user. That means, let's say if you have an LDAP server authentications, okay, so any groups which is available in LDAP server, that will be imported here, and based on that you can access, you can grant access also. These users and groups are given a specific role to resources like clusters, projects, multi-cluster apps, and global DNS provider and entries. When you give access to group, all users who are a member of that group in the authentication provider will be able to access the resources with the permission that you have specified. And last one, which I have repeated already, assigning global roles to a group only works with the external auth provider that support group. Local authorization does not support groups. Okay, so in a simple way, you have a user and you have a group. You log in through the various ways, and what kind of login, what you are allowed to do, that is determined by roles. You have a three level of roles: global roles, the roles which is based on the project and namespace, and then there's one more role which we have is cluster role. Are you understanding, all of you?
Yes,
Hello?
I got it, but a little bit confused. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a little bit of visualizations. See here, this, just imagine this is your cluster, rancher cluster, and this is me. Now, how can I log in? So I can log in using the user ID and password. That's called authentication. But after that login, I am not allowed to do anything. I cannot do anything. So how can I get access? So I need to be a part of the roles, which is a global roles or cluster roles or project role. That is what I'm trying to say. Global roles means system wide, cluster role means only for the clusters, or project means project and namespace means in a cluster you have a certain namespace, right? You can convert into the projects. So that is a three levels. So now let's say if you have access to the global roles. So global roles, again we have a different types of global role, which I showed you here. This is the one. Depends on what kind of global roles. This is the you get a entire rancher access. Here you get only dedicated access to the clusters, and here you get access only to the project and namespaces. Are you understanding now? That means how to log in with the authentication. What you are allowed to do, that's
Yeah.
set by the rules. Are you understanding?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that is important. Okay. So some of the key points I would like to tell you is someone will ask you, hey, in Rancher, how do we authenticate? You should say, hey, we have a local authentication enabled with the user ID and password. So using that, we can authenticate. In fact, external authentications is also possible, like LDAP and ODAP, Google, GitHub, and stuff like that. But for that, we have to configure. That's all. Now, if they'll ask you, hey, can you tell me a user has logged in and how can you grant access to him? So you should say in Rancher, we have a three types of role. One is a global roles, one is a cluster roles, and one is a project level role. So now let's say you want to give access to to a rancher level. That means to a rancher itself, the person. So you can add in the global roles. If you want to give user access to the cluster which you are creating, then you can give access to the cluster roles. And if you want to give user access to certain project of particular clusters, then you can add into the projects and namespace rules. Okay, again in the global role itself, the levels of multiple different kind of roles are there. For example, admin with a less privileges and so on and stuff like that. Same goes with cluster roles also. You have a different level of permissions, and same goes with the projects and namespaces also. We have a different level of permission. What you should check this out. So here labels, administrator, configuration, authentication, legacy, user catalog. Here you see restricted administrator, standard user, user base, manage users. All these are roles inbuilt. Now you see the inbuilt, everything is inbuilt. Now if you go to the cluster labels, here you have a to backup for administrator, for the cluster members, and all these things. You see that all these are inbuilt. Now if you see that in project space is related Kubernetes admin and create namespaces allowed and all. Here these all managed value. These all are the access which is based on the Kubernetes level actually. Okay, so here you can built in, you can see the built in, and you can add this into that. So it depends on that. Let's say Son, you are the person who has asked me, Rajesh, to give access. Then I ask you, hey, Son, you can log in with the user ID and password. That's not a problem. Where do you create a user ID and password? Here. But I may not. Here you have Son, right? Here I am not this user. I'm not adding any authentications. So here, see, nothing I'm adding. Everything is just simple. So now you don't have access actually. You have access of nothing. Just you can log in with the user ID and password. But then I'll say, what kind of access you want? You want access to cluster, or you want to access to rancher or cluster or some project on particular cluster. Then accordingly, I'll say, okay, fine, I understood that. Let me do one thing. Let me set user or standard user, whatever exactly, or here also multiple rules are there. Okay, and accordingly, I will set your authentications. Are you understanding? So let's say I go to here, roles, and here I'll go to the clusters. Here, manage user backup.
Yeah.
So these are the access which you have for that. Are you understanding now?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, this is the access. So let's move on.
And can you example one case?
What is that?
Can you create one user and assign some permission run
Yes, yes. Just
and
now I
try
did
to
no.
log out
So
and log in?
here I created a user zone. Okay, and
Yeah.
now this zone I have given what access? You see that? Create template revision. So I can modify anything. See here, edit. Now I'll give you something different access. So let's say restricted administrator access. These are all the global permissions which you have. And if you want to give additional roles, I can give it to you like this. Okay, so I'm giving you global permissions and save it and done. So now if you log in, you will see that, let me show you that what permissions you got it. Here, these are the permissions you got it, granted. Which are the permissions? These are the permissions. Now you want to check that what these permissions will do. So you just check manage users. See, this you can create a user, delete user, get user, list user, patch user, update user, watch user, and so forth. Which resources? This resources. Remember, resources means you understand that. So here, if you see that group, you see API groups and resources. I must show you one thing here. This is the, see here, just a second. So you see that here very carefully. Now this is a resources table. So many resources. So this is the resources table. Okay, first one. But if you want to see the group, it is somewhere here. API version. So V1 is a group. See, this is the group. This is the group. This is the group. You can see the list of groups also. So the command is API groups, I guess. Now let me search for it. Version, sorry, API version. So that will show you the which are the groups are there. So API version, where is that? Here it is. So these are the groups we have. Okay, so these are the resource group. Okay, don't get confused with the user group and resource group. User groups for the user, resource group for the multiple resources. Okay, so I'm showing you these are the resource group. These are the resources. These are the resource group. Okay, so you want to see this resource group management grep. See, are you understanding? Hello, hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I don't know log out meeting. Yeah.
Okay. So yes. So this is the group. So now see that how RBAC works. So look at this here. RBAC is a inbuilt authorization mechanism in Kubernetes. Okay. So in RBAC, what we do, we have a users and group, and then we have roles. We add users and group through the roles, and that's called role binding process. Okay, and role binding process, and in the role binding, we say what users and what groups and what resources you want to add it. This is how we do the role binding. So here you look at this. I have shown you, in fact, these are the roles where we can see that. So how RBAC works in Rancher? Okay, so this is important again. So RBAC means role-based access control, which we discussed. So now here, what would happen in Rancher? Users can be a local or external authenticating as a user to Rancher. That's okay. In our case, we have a local user only, Rajesh, admin, and Son. I created a 2 users today, and then there is one admin which is a building. Now, which is a login that grants you access. Once the user login into Rancher, their auth or their access rights are determined by global permissions. Okay, mind it. Global permissions or Kubernetes clusters or project rule. Okay, so I showed you that the 3 options. Now the question is the global permissions we will discuss in detail, and also will discuss about cluster and project roles also in detail. Okay, both global permissions, clusters, and project roles are implemented on top of Kubernetes RBAC. Remember that this is implemented on the top of Kubernetes RBAC. So that means if you want to understand this Rancher authentication and authorization model very well, you first practice a little bit of RBAC also. Okay, so that is the thing. This ensure enforcement of permissions and rules is handled by Kubernetes. Okay, user define user authentication outside the scope of any particular Kubernetes cluster. Define user authorization inside a specific Kubernetes cluster or projects where they are assigned the role. Okay, so this is the some information. Now let's look at this global permissions and clusters and project role. So here global permissions, which we have a 4: administrator, restricted admin, standard user, user base, the one which I have already shown you. So administrator, what they can do, these users have a full control over the entire Rancher system and all cluster within it. Now restricted admin, I have already shown you to make you comfortable. These users have the full control over downstream cluster, but they cannot alter the local Kubernetes cluster. Standard user, what they can do, these users can create a new clusters and use them, as well as assign other users permission to their clusters. And last one, which user base users have login access only. Out of which, if you move to the cluster and projects roles, okay, so if you assign a user with the cluster owner, then what they can do? So cluster owner, these users have a full control over the cluster and all resources in it. Is a cluster level access. Okay, when you have a cluster member, then these users can view most cluster level resources and create a new projects. When you assign someone a project owner, then these users have a full control over the project and the resources in it. And if someone is a project member, these users can manage project scope, resources like namespaces and workload, but not other projects member. And the last one is read only. These users can view everything in the project, but cannot create, update, or delete everything. So yes, I think by now we should be very clear about it, how these authentications and authorizations works uh, in Rancher, and we should be comfortable with it. So yes, global, clusters, and manage and project. Are you able to understand this?
Yes, I got it. Can you demo how can we access with external? For example, we using Active Directory, GitHub,
Yeah.
etc.
So Active Directory, I cannot show you because I don't have a LDAP servers and all, but something which I can try for the Google authentications. It's like it's available free of cost. I can show you also GitHub authentications, which is also available free of cost. Okay, so these two authentication is available, but if you want to see this open LDAP, I think it's not a challenge for you. Why? Because if you have a LDAP server, all this detail, then you just fill this form and just test it and enable. That's all. So I don't have any LDAP server, which is a paid services. Again, we have to enable it and get it. But Google is free. I can show you. GitHub is also free. This also I can show you. So these are the things I can try. Make sense?
Yes, Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is the stuff. Let's move on to the next slides. Okay. So here this area which already you have seen it, users rules and stuff like that. Okay. Now managing rancher project. Okay. So project we have discussed many times. What is a project? So projects are objects introduced in the rancher help organizing namespaces in your Kubernetes cluster. I repeat, you have to go back to the Kubernetes cluster now. Okay, in order to understand the project, you have to go to back to Kubernetes cluster. So you have one Kubernetes cluster, you may have n number of namespaces. So you know in a project, you can assign one namespace or multiple namespaces. Thus, you can label it to that to certain projects. So projects are objects introduced in Rancher that helps organize namespace in your Kubernetes cluster. Projects can be used to create multi-tenant cluster, allowing a group of users to share the same underlying resources without interacting with each other's application. Okay, so in a cluster itself, you can create a project which can be a multi-tenant. And using this project concept, you have, let's say, hundreds of users in a cluster, and let's say 5 projects. So each 5 projects, users, they are not interacting with each other, but still they are using the same cluster. So that is a kind of isolation is being done with project. Okay, so now let's see that here. Projects can perform actions such as assign user access to a group of namespace. Remember, so once you create a project, you have to assign, okay, which user you want that access to a group of namespace. Again, what you can do, assign user specific role in a project. Okay, user specific roles in a project. A role can be owner, member, read only, or custom. What I'm talking about, look at this, user specific. So where is the user specific? Let's look at this here and remind yourself. This is the roles and this is the project, and see this. These are the user specific roles. Okay, for the project. So these are the things you can assign it for the projects. Okay, so assign user specific roles in a project. Roles can be owner, member, and read only for a custom. Again, at the project level, you can set resource quotas. Now, what is a resource quota? Roles we have discussed, but what is a resource quota?
Issue quota is mean look like distress.
So resource quota basically is a one API resources for Kubernetes. Using that, you can manage the CPU utilization, RAM utilization of your namespace. Okay, so that's the resource quota. So you can set for project also. Okay, and also project can perform also manage the works namespace. As I said, in a project you can have a multiple namespace. It can manage the namespaces also. You can configure the tools also. So let's say for the some projects you may have, let's say you want the SonarQube or Jira or some specific tool like a monitoring tools like log monitoring tool and something like that. So yeah, you can make it available for the project. Set up pipelines for continuous CI/CD also. CI/CD means like build, test, all these things, deployment and all. You can also do at the project level, and also configure pod security policies also. Okay, so these are the actions which you can perform. Project can perform in a rancher. Again, I repeat, projects can perform actions such as assign user access to a group of namespace, assign user to a specific roles in a project. A role can be a owner, member, read only, or custom, set resources quotas, manage namespaces, configure tools, set pipelines for continuous integration and deployment, and configure pod security policies. Okay, so within a rancher, you can further divide projects into different namespaces, which are virtual cluster within the project backed by a physical cluster. So we have been talking about in a project, you can have a multiple namespaces, and that you can do that. So we typically assign these resources at a project level. However, you can assign resources explicitly to a resource, a namespace label also. Resources that can assign directly to namespace include workload, load balancer and ingress, service discovery reports, PVC, certificate, configs, registries, secret. Now the question is to you, Son. What is a workload here?
Workload is mean CPU, RAM.
No. Workload means in Kubernetes always hardcode yours this statement. Workload means pod. Yes. Pod, replication controller, a deployment, stateful set, daemon sets. These are the workload. What is the load balancer in Kubernetes? Quickly.
Load balancer is mean we have multiple nodes can
No,
load balance.
Service is the load balancer. Okay, so service is the network load balancer, ingress is application load balancer. Service discovery records, PVC, certificate, config map, registry, secrets, all these things, resources that you can assign directly to namespace. Okay, so yes, you can do that. Basically, in a simple way, I'll put it in this way. You create a namespace, and inside the namespace you can create a workload, load balancer, service discovery, PVC, certification, all these things, and you can have a multiple namespace into one project, and each project you can do all this thing. Simple. So if someone will ask you, hey, do one thing, I create, please hear me out clearly. Someone will ask you, I have one clusters, but I have 5 projects to manage. So what do we do? So nothing. You go in the clusters, you create a project. Each project will have a one or multiple namespaces, and each namespaces you can deploy all these API resources of Kubernetes. And at the project level, you can set the permission, you can set the quota, you can install the tools and all blah blah CI/CD and security rules. Project level you can set the security access. Project level you can set a quota. Project level you can manage the namespace. Project level you can install the tools. Project level CI/CD. Project level pod security policy. Are you understanding?
Yeah, I got it.
Yes. So here is the one. Now question is, where is the project library? So go back to the UI part first and look for the roles. Cluster. So do we have any clusters? So let's look at this. Here we have one cluster only. We have not added any cluster so far. So here this is the clusters. Now where is the project there? So here is the project. Can we create one project for the sake of learning? Yes, I'm going to create a project. Create a project. And here this named with DevOps school. Now this is for demo. And now look at this here. I talked about it. Correlate the discussion. Again, hard code this statement in your mind. Here you can assign user account to group of namespace. You can assign users to specific roles in a project. You can set a resource quota. So here you see that. Just so you can set the resource quota. So here you see you can set the resource quota. You can set a members who should be a part of this. Okay, who should be a part of this project? So I have an admin, that's the default. Okay, add it. Now you want to add someone, let's say Rajesh. Here it is. No, you want to add Son. Here it is. You can add the members here, and you want to give permissions. What kind of permissions? So Son, you want to give a member permissions, read-only permissions, test permission, custom permission. What do you want? Let's say Son is the owner of this project. It's a project level permission. Mind it. Project level permission. Or maybe I say, hey Rajesh, you become a member of it. Are you understanding what I'm trying to do? So here project label, you can do all this stuff. So saying I'm adding a member and add. So here I added a member. Now here you can add a resource quota. Okay, so for this particular project which you are creating, what is the limit? What is the limit for the namespace and project limit? So add resources. See here. These are all the resources: CPU, memory, storage, all these things. You see that? I don't know whether it's visible full or not. Yeah. Now you can see that. Yeah. So when you create a project, you define. Okay. So let's say you are working now in your organization. Okay. and you got only one cluster deployed through the Kubernetes. Then in the cluster itself, you have to divide into 5 teams. So you create a 5 project. Now each project will fight for the resources. Someone is saying, hey, I am going to use all of these resources through the pod. So they will, and other will blame, hey, you are using the more resources, and because of you, I have a downtime. So those kind of fighting between the projects, you can avoid it. How? Set the limitation. Hey, this project, DevOps tool, you're going to use only this much of CPU. You're going to use only this much of RAM and stuff like that. And or maybe you can only create this many configs. Okay, or this you can only create this many secrets, or you can only you have this many ports, service ports, or you can also say, hey, you cannot create pods in the project more than this. Are you understanding?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so you see here, you can set the permission limitation for the project label and a namespace label also. What does that mean? So if you set at the project level, let's say 50, that means entire namespace in a project you may have a multiple namespace. So entire namespace, no matter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10, maximum ports you will have a 50. But let's say you set 50 and a namespace limitation 10. What does that mean? That means no matter how many namespace you can have a maximum 10 for each namespace, and for the each project, for this project, maximum 50. Are you understanding? That means you can have a 5 namespace easily in that case.
The 10 namespace mean we can create 10 namespace, right?
Yeah, so when you create a project, you can add a members, you can add a resource quota, you can also container default resource limit also, you can say. What is the container default resource limit? See, at the container level itself, you can set, see, Kubernetes, you have a pods, right? Inside a pod, you have a container. So container limitation also you can set for this particular project. I don't know whether you did it or not. Let me show you some sample programs in Google. So here, pods container set resource limit, resource limit. Okay, I hit this and you see the example. I want to show you the example. Okay, so see here, here look at this, pod spec containers, and you see that they are setting the limit, resource limit. So this thing you can do it using Rancher also at a high level for this project. Okay, and you can also add labels and allocations and create it. So I created a project, set the limit, add the members, and all the stuff. Do you see that? How do we create a project?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, guys, if you look
Can
at this
you repeat
here,
again?
yeah. So that's what I'm saying here. At the project label, you can assign a user's access to the group of namespaces. You can assign a roles also. You can set a resource quota. You can manage a namespace. You can configure tools. You can set up pipeline CI/CD pipeline and set up a pod security policies also at the project level. And now these are the projects which you see it's created already. It's a project system. It's for the rancher management. Okay. So these are all the rancher related projects. And here, this is my project, and there's something which is there which is said not in projects. Okay, so yeah, this is the project. You can delete the projects, you can move from one to another one, download YAML file, all this thing you can do. You can create a namespace inside the project also. So where is my projects? Here it is. So inside that I'm creating a namespace. What namespace? This is the namespace I'm creating for the dev. Okay, again at the namespace level also, you can set the resource quota, container stuff and all, and create it. And here I am going to create one more. Where is that? Here. And I'm going to create one more for QA namespace and set it up. So yes, this is the way you can create a project. This is the way you can create a namespace. Now, does that mean I cannot create through the command line? No, it's not like that. I can create through the command line also. Everything you can do through command line also. How? Let me show you here. So here, kubectl get ns. What ns I created? QA. Get ns grep QA. So see here, this is the QA I created. So get ns QA, and you see here, this is the I created. Let me describe it. kubectl describe what ns, what is QA ns. See here. So this is the API resources for what QA. So I can do with other also. How to do that? So hyphen what is this options? I'm forgetting it. Yes. Get. Yeah. So see here, and YAML show. I want to display as a YAML file. I forgot that command. Hyphen YAML. Okay, just output. Yes, I remember now. So output is equal to YAML. Here it is. This is the YAML. Now what I'll do? Convert into that my one YAML file. Enter vi the one, and I'll modify what you want. I want the namespace. So name with Raju, and okay, and everything is okay. Status is not needed. That's all. So this is the Kubernetes. You can do through the Kubernetes also, and do it here. So here, kubectl. I hope there is no syntax issues. Apply -f11.yaml. Done. And now, guys, you see here. Did you see that?
I didn't see your screen.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I cannot see your screen.
It's
When
visible,
you show,
no?
I didn't see.
Okay, one more
I
time.
only see Kuber control guess and SQ. I just saw like that.
Okay, so next time you have to correct your laptop or something like that, because this way it's very difficult to connect with online. Okay, so I'm repeating this. This is the YAML file. Okay, you can see the recording later, but again I'm repeating. So I'm going to modify this. I'm going to do this YAML file, and then I'm going to change this name of it. Name of this is like, let's say I'm creating Sonu.
Yeah.
Sonu. Okay, your name.
Sonron.
Okay, Sonron, let me do that. So Sonron, correct? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And after that,
Yeah,
I'm
I see
going to
your
apply.
screen now.
Yeah. So here, I'm applying this. See, through command line also, I could create it here and refresh it. See, Sonron. Can you see my screen now? So yes, it's not like that you can only do through the Rancher UI. You can also perform all these activities through the Rancher, kubectl commands also. Okay, so yes, I created a project, and inside the project, I created a namespace. Okay, now after that, you can see all this stuff in this cluster. So it's just a matter of you browse all this stuff and get going. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Now, next topic is how do we do the backing up Rancher? That is important. Okay, how do we back it up? So when it comes for managing any platform, not only Rancher, backup is very important. So how do we do that? So Rancher has one operator. What is operator, by the way? In Kubernetes world, what is operator? So
I'm not
what is
sure.
operator?
I think
Okay.
backup, right? Backup.
No. No. See, in Kubernetes, if someone will ask you, hey, Son, can you tell me what is operator and which are the operator you have worked for? So you should say like this. See, in Kubernetes, all the functionality cannot be developed as we need it. We need lots of other controller. Remember, we need a lots of many controller for the custom resources. Controller for custom resources. By the way, what is a controller?
Controller, we in cluster we have one not
No.
as control.
No. Controller is a one controller manager is a one component which is running in the master server of Kubernetes. So you have to spend more time on the Kubernetes. Okay, remember you are managing multiple Kubernetes cluster using Rancher. So if you don't know Kubernetes, the keyword properly, it's very difficult to you to understand this stuff. So all these jargons which is coming from the Kubernetes actually, Rancher is just a layer on top of it, nothing else. Okay, so coming back to the points here, the question was, what is the operator? So operator is basically is a way to control the custom resources which we enhance in terms of increasing the number of features in Kubernetes. So here we want to back up what? Rancher. Rancher is running on where? Kubernetes. So we have to back up the Kubernetes. And for that, Rancher has one operator which is called Rancher backup operator. Okay, and that is used to backup and restore Rancher. This backup restore operator need to be installed in the local cluster. I repeat, this operator you need to install in the local cluster and only backup the Rancher app only. So if you're running in that cluster anything else also, it will not back it up. Backup and restore operators are performed only in the local Kubernetes cluster, the one which I was showing you. Rancher backup only works in the Rancher version and must be that is. So by the way, which version of Rancher we are using today and in this session?
Can you repeat again?
Which version of Rancher we are learning today in this session, in this batch?
I remember the latest version.
No, if someone will ask you, hey,
right?
no. If someone will ask you, hey, which version of Rancher you worked, what do you remember? What you say? You should say 2.6, latest one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this operator.
One. Okay.
Yeah, that's the latest one for today's. Okay. So this operator, the backup operator, will be active only for the 2.5.1 and up. Backups are created as a tarball files and can be stored in the cloud storage such as AWS S3 or a persistent volume. So that is a backing up. Where do you see the backup? You can see that here. Now, can we go and check it out? This backup is available or not? So let's go here and do we have a backup? No, we don't have a backup. What do we do in this case? So we don't have that backup. So what you can do is you are able to see this local, and do you see app and marketplace? Hello?
Yeah, I see your screen.
You are not able to see my screen?
I see now.
Yeah. So here again, I'm going hit the home page, go to the clusters. Are you able to see this app and marketplace?
Yeah, I see that.
Click on it and see these are the apps you can install it. So my backup apps is not installed. Where exactly that is? So see here, this app is for the drivers, alerting drivers. This is for the CIS benchmark. This is for the some IP webhook. This is harvested cloud provisioning. This for physical servers. Okay. Istio you have it here. Logging you have Longhorn you have. Okay, for the log storage. Monitoring Prometheus if you are using here you have. Opal Gatekeeper we have here. Rancher Backup. This is the one which we have. We can install it. And few other tools we have apps. Just check it out. And you should spend more time here. You have a see here. all these tools.
Yes.
Sysdid, you have monitoring tools. All this you can install, but right now I don't need. I need only Rancher backup. So what I'm going to do? So I'll click here and I will read with a peace of mind everything. And see, this is the command line, Helm command line to install this. Okay, but I'm going to install through UI. Okay, and this backup you want to install into the some projects or something. DevOps will default a system, so I'll go for the system, or I'll leave it also. That's not a problem. Next, and everything is okay, and install. That's all. So I installed one features. It will take few minutes. Don't just wait for it. And that is for the backup. Like that, you can install a hell lot of apps which you can find in the marketplace. It can be logging, you can be monitoring, it can be CI/CD, it can be Prometheus, it can be anything else also. So you can install this app. Are you able to understand that?
Yes, I got it. But regarding when you ask me controllers or in Kubernetes, I think I got it. But when I explain with you, I don't know how to explain. Yeah, because
Okay, no problem, no problem. You have to have all these keywords on your mouth. I mean, so you can respond, right? I think you have an interview, right? Planned.
yeah, I passed and now I join a real project now. They using Rancher uh, and monitoring tool Elastic, App
Mhm.
Dynamic, and Prometheus. So I think Rancher very critical. I need to learn.
Yes, yes. So you should spend more time with this app actually. Okay, so now
And
installation is
Kubernetes
done.
also.
Yeah, I would suggest practice. The more Kubernetes, you will become a rancher expert also.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now you saw that here rancher backup has come. Now I'm going to set it up this backup. So let's say I'm going to set it up backup. This one is the daily backup. Probably I'm going to set it up. And where you should be stored. So I'm storing the default storage, or you can, though you can do that in S3 also. Okay. And prune, delete, create. So, okay, this backups will be running daily. Age 3 seconds and also like retrying. I mean, it's not daily. I just wrote a daily here, but set. I did not set that stuff. You can edit and do all this stuff, but this is the way you can back it up. Okay. So if someone say, hey, in Rancher, how do you create a backup? You say, hey, we have an app, Rancher Backup Operator app, and using that you can set up a backup. Here you can set up a backup here. Okay. Now,
Yeah, yes.
yeah. So now we can also set up the private registry in Rancher. Now the question is, what is a private registry? What is a private container registry?
Private container registry is mean we using to store image, right? In local.
Yes. Yes. So see, public registry we have, right? We have a public registry which is a Docker Hub, public
Docker
container
Hub.
registry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And private registry, you can set it up using Nexus, Artifactory, ECR in cloud, Google registry. All these are public registry also. And in Rancher also, you can set up a private registry. Okay, so there are two main ways to set up a private registry in Rancher. First, by setting up global default registry through setting tab in the global view. Okay, that's the first option. Second option, by setting up the private registry in the advanced option in the cluster level setting. Cluster level setting means, see, there's a one rancher level setting, which is you can find somewhere in the global setting here. Okay, that's the one thing. Now, under this cluster level setting, you can find under here. See here, cluster level setting. Okay, so you can set up the private registry also. So for that, there is also one app. So there's so many apps are there. So just search for registry. See here, Artifactory, you can use it. Okay. So by the way, this Artifactory, this one is a paid one actually. Okay. So even though if you install it, you have to apply for this one. What do you say? Keys actually. But yes, you can set up a private registry. You can install this private registry and done. Next, install. I'm not covering each and every field. Once you go through this, you will read that and do that. So yes, you can install the private registry for the cluster level, global level also. Mind it. So yes, there are two main ways to set up a private registry: by setting up the global default registry through that setting tab in the global view, or second one, the one which just now I did it, by setting up the private registry in the advanced option in the cluster level setting. Okay, so in the global default registry is for the air gapped setups and when you don't need a required connections, whereas cluster level private registry is for when you need a required credentials. Okay, so yeah, I have just spent some time over there, and probably that by this time the registry is also installed. I guess no, it's still getting done. Just wait for it. See here, service does not have a load balancer in this IP address, so that is a problem. So this cluster I have not set it up for the load balancer. Okay, so load balancer service is getting weighted actually. That's the problem. So it's a local cluster. You don't have a load balancer. You can only up to the node port. You can go for that. So that's a problem. Okay. So this is the refresh here and go to the local label and here and that has not come because installation did not get completed because of problems like that. Okay. Now here, you know what? You can also use ranching for customizing the rancher branding and navigation links also. Branding means such as like your company name, links, logo, colors, and all stuff like that. You can do that. So let's say you are working for Adobe system, for example, and you want to represent that rancher for Adobe. So how do you set up those branding information? So what you have to do is, let me show you. You have to go to global setting, and do you see this option branding? Hello.
Branding, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So here you can
I
say
saw
what is your so what is your company name? So let's say my company name is DevOps School.
like
Okay. So DevOps School.
yeah,
Now what are the
we know
name?
bot.
Yes. Yes. DevOpsschool.com and support like that. Logo, use custom logo, upload some logo. Okay, I think I don't have any logo. Do I have something? No, I don't have any image of
Yeah,
logo. So you
yeah,
can upload that
photo.
logo also. Yeah, you can upload some light logo, dark logo. You can set the primary color. You can use the link color, so all stuff like that, and save it. What is the problem? Okay, so the issue reporting value must be complete. Okay, I have not. What is this? Must be
I
completed.
saw many.
Yeah, this way. Okay, and apply. Done. So yeah, this is the way you can see the branding also. Now, if you go to the home page, I see welcome to DevOps and colored and all. You can this also you can change this banners and all. I don't have any banners right now. Let me check this if I have a banners. I don't have any banner right now which I can upload, but yes, here you can change the banners. Okay, and all this thing you can do.
Yes,
Okay, so branding also you can do that for Rancher. That's options are available. And Rancher CLI. So if you want to work with the rancher not through UI, you can work with the CLIs also. Okay, so rancher CLI gives you a way to operate rancher using a command line option instead of UI. By the way, I use the kubectl for managing the rancher. I used also UI for it, but you know what, rancher also has a CLI, so which you can use it. Which are the commands which you have? So these are the commands which you can see that the rancher CLI, you have to install the rancher CLI and configure the access. It will work with the kubectl access also. So the following commands are available in the rancher CLI. To app, work with the app catalog, to work with the clusters, to work with the context, to inspect something, kubectl login, namespaces, nodes, projects, settings, as such, and stuff like that. Okay, so here app command which will help you to perform operations on catalog applications, i.e. individual Helm chart. Catalog will help you to perform operation on catalog. Clusters perform operation on your clusters. Context will help you to switch the context. By the way, what is a context?
Context switch between rancher project.
No, it's part of the kubectl config file. There we set the context. Context is having two inputs. Okay, one is like a clustered information, and second one which is a project which your namespace specification. That's the context. Okay, so yes, rest of the keywords downside which you can see is from the Kubernetes itself. So you'll understand this. Okay, how do we upgrade the rancher? So first of all, upgrading the rancher, there's some prerequisite, and that's our like access to kubeconfig. You should be having it. Like I'm having it, kubeconfig, which is a kubeconfig. So let me show you that. More dollar ls dot cube. Here, this is the kubeconfig file. I'm having access. So basically config file, which is running off your Kubernetes cluster on which you are running rancher, you should be having access. Okay. And you should also check the reviews, known issues, and ensure that Helm version 3 is installed. I have a Helm version 3 itself, HEL version 3, sorry, hyphen version. Oh, what? CA 3.6.2. So yes, that should be installed. These are the prerequisites. After that, these are the steps you have to do. First, you have to take a backup. How do you take a backup? I told you. After, if you have to run the command helm repo update. I am going to run. A backup is done. Helm repo update. That's a command to upgrade your rancher. Okay. Sorry, spelling mistake. Helm. Okay. So this is the thing.
Do you have,
yeah, tell me.
yeah, do you have any comment regarding Helm?
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you clearly. If you can chat,
Yes,
put it in chat.
I mean that do you have any document regarding Helm chart?
Oh, Helm, yeah. Last session I did during the setup of cluster. I have a videos also.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Can you share
So
me?
here, let's try this. Helm, enter Helm. All this my tutorials you can find here only. Here it is.
In blog, right? In blogs?
Yes. Just search for Helm or anything. Let's say Kubernetes, you want to search Kubadium. I use here kubectl. Anything you just search for, you will get the tutorials here.
Yes, I try it.
Yeah. So after that, what you have to do? Update the Helm. After that, you have to get the current rancher deployment values. That the number, the release number. Right now it's a 2.6. Anyways, it's up to date, so there's no needed. After that, after getting the numbers, after that you have to get upgrade rancher. So the command is helm upgrade rancher whatever you see that, and the name ns name where, and hosted name whatever. That's all. So this is the way to upgrade the rancher. Anyways, you will not do next to I think 6 months or 1 year, but it's a good to know information. Okay, so now the topic which has come, which is the most important topic, and that is deploying Kubernetes with Rancher. That means downstream cluster. Okay, so where is that options? Let me show you here. That options are available here, and that is.
Can you explain? Can
Yeah.
you explain
So
what is it mean downstream?
what is that?
Downstream. What is it mean?
Downstream
But for
downstream
my
cluster. Downstream cluster.
yeah
We are discussing from last 3 days, right? Downstream cluster means what?
yeah I mean downstream cluster. We using Rancher to create a KS or Z.
Correct. Yes, 100%. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
See, using the Rancher, you create a cluster of what? Kubernetes. On which platform? Google Cloud, AKS, GKE, local, this, that. You can add existing clusters also. Make sense? Yeah. So here you have to come to
Yes,
this
yes.
place. Yes. Here you have to come to this place and cluster management. And here you can create the clusters. I have only one that's a local, but you can create a cluster. The moment you go and create a clusters, now you have to decide where do you want to create. And that's where we have to do a little bit of more configuration, like keys, roles. Let's say if you create a clusters on Amazon, then you have to have a roles for that. You need to have a secret tokens and all stuff like that. Something similar with Azure, GK, and all stuff like that. Okay, so this part we'll do in the next session, and this is the most important part, and we will discuss in the next session further. Any questions which you have in the next 5 minutes? I would love to
Yes,
answer.
I saw in UI we have many function. Some function I don't know what mean.
Which function?
Can you go overview? Can you go to overview on once again?
Here.
Yeah, you click to local.
This is the local cluster. Same, the one which we install the Kubernetes.
No, please go to local. I saw many
Yeah,
function in that.
I click on the local. Yes, this is the local.
Yeah, yeah, we have a project name, North cluster member, my service discovery. Can you explain a little service discovery?
Okay, these all which you see here, these all are the resources of Kubernetes. Remember, what is the local? First, you tell me what is the local. Then I'll explain it to you.
The local is mean we have two Nostra in
No, local means is the name of the cluster where I have installed
yeah,
Rancher. That's all. Okay, clear?
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Now
I
in my
don't know how
local
to
cluster,
explain. Yeah, yeah,
no problem. So in my local clusters, whatever information you are seeing, these all are the resources which got deployed. So how many cron jobs you have? Daemon set, deployment, jobs, statefuls, these are all the pods. Okay, so these all are in a local resource, local clusters. So that number you can query through the kubectl also, and you can get it also here. Okay, so these are the local resources workload. Now if you see that service discovery, here you see this services, how many services I have. So right now, see, earlier I had only one services, but I installed the registry artifactory, so you got a multiple services. If you look at this very carefully, this services is still pending. Why? Because of load. See, the type is load balancer. I'll show you this one through
yeah,
uh, this
yeah,
one through command line also. kubectl get svc, sorry, svc. See here, this is pending. So whatever the through command line you can query for that cluster, you have available on GUI also, so you can work easily. Simple. Here you have ingresses. Here your network policy, HPA you have here. Storage PV, PVC storage class and all secrets, config maps. Here you have. Rancher backup, just now I showed you. So these are nothing but resources of your clusters like that. If you add more clusters, you will have a similar UI. Make sense?
Yes, I got it. I think I need to read more secret and config map. What does it mean? And
These are the resources of Kubernetes again. If you go here, kubectl, get secrets. These are the resources in Kubernetes. Secrets. Further, see here, these are the secrets. CM config map. So these resources where you store some information such as keys and certificates in Kubernetes in a cluster itself. Cluster means etcd. So I think, you know,
yes,
Son, you need to spend more time with the Kubernetes hub, I guess. I felt.
yes. Yeah, I practice every day, but I do lab and try to read what meaning everything. Secret, persistent, volume, storage. But some maybe cannot remember on. Yeah, I try read again.
Yeah. You have to practice. You have few servers on AWS, keep practicing it.
Yeah, I read document and practice also. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so next session I'm going to deploy one cluster. So I'll not be able to deploy too many clusters. The reason is it's very costly stuff. But I will, for the demo sake, I will deploy one clusters, and which can be, let's say, EKS. Okay, and I will also try to existing clusters also add it. That will be much cheaper for me. Okay, so this option, one custom and one EKS, I will try and I'll help you with. Okay.
Along with that, you can access our other tutorials such as Docker, Ansible, Jenkins, Terraform, Splunk, AWS, Azure, and various other DevOps related premium tutorials with our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the 3D99 plan and grow your skills immensely. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, if you would like to access the remaining videos of this playlist of 50 plus more tools which are coming under DevOps, DevSecOps, SRE, DataOps, GitOps, etc. Kindly become our channel members by clicking on the joining button. You would have access to 100s of playlists and 1000s of videos lifetime access with this membership. Enjoy.